Okay, now we have a lot of different renders of our object, and we want to compile them in Photoshop. So we're going to go ahead and close ZBrush. And open up Photoshop. Okay, now I just recommend opening up all of them at the same time. It's easier that way, and you can just stack them, and I'll show you how in just a second. So here are all my Photoshop files. I'll just click one, shift select the one on the bottom, and click open. And what that does is that stacks every one of them on top of themselves. And so I'm just going to move each one of those guys over to the side, and I'll bring them back as I need them, and I will need each and every one of them. But I want to find one that I'm going to use as my base, and it is actually this guy right here, because this is a flat RGB high render of each of the individual pieces. So start moving these guys. And what you want to do is, with the one you want as your main. Okay, so we've opened up all our projects. We have our main. We've opened up all our renders. We have our main render center stage. What we want to do is you want to start to stack them. And how you'll do that is you'll select the one you want to stack on top of your main. You'll just drag it from the background on, and then I'll close the one I just dragged. So I have here, I have both of them stacked directly on top of each other. You do that by selecting the layer, just dragging it onto your next palette. And so I'll go through the process of stacking these. I just close it after I've stacked it. And then we get to a couple of the other guys which are unique. And we'll get to that in a second. The mask, the depth, the shadow, and the subsurface scattering, and also this guy right here. I want to say the depth is the only one that you can drag on there, and it's going to ask you if you want to change your settings. You can go ahead and apply yes. All the rest of these can only be input in your object's channels layer. So make sure you have your initial object here selected. This is my stack of renders now, including my depth, and you can just change that depth to multiply or darken to see what its effect is. It's pretty nice. Gives you a little variance in how dynamic your lighting is. Get your channels open though, so you can drag and drop into your channels, because that's what you need to do for the rest of these objects. So for your subsurface scattering, it's dragged into channels. I don't want to save that. Let's see here. My shadow, I want to drag that into the channels. And then my mask, which is definitely the most, in my opinion, the most important one, you want to drag that into your channels. And so I closed my subsurface scattering, didn't add it, but it's not that big of a deal right now. with my alpha selected, here I can do this and see what it looks like with my your subsurface scattering on. It's not reacting how you want it because you don't have it linked properly to your layers. So don't worry about that now. You can just select your alpha here, select all the black, and go back into your object. And then when you have these, you can, if you want, now this isn't necessarily what you do at this stage, you'll just delete the background. You have your object perfectly masked, and so you get that by dropping your mask from ZBrush into your channels layer and then using your channels layer for your selection. So I'm not worried about that now. What we're going to worry about now is the metallics, compositing, and all that kind of stuff. So if you notice, the first thing you see here is a metal, and it's a very shiny metal. And I'm going to put that on the bottom, and there's a reason I do that, and I'll explain that later. But I'll just explain that later. You just want to put it at the bottom because that is, at the end of the day, that is your metal. And then I'll go ahead and take the other metal, which is second, and I'll put that second to bottom. And what do I have here? I got a kind of a light, just default color group right here, this guy. And I have him entirely to lighten up certain pieces, and he's not that important right now for what I'm doing, so I'm going to keep him off. Now these two, if you notice, these two kind of have a little bit of a relationship with the way they're working together. And what I want to do is I want to modify this top layer so it works in conjunction with this bottom layer now. And so I'm going to go through and play with my different settings and try to find one that really works well with it. So see, look, this is my one without it. I have it on, it looks better, and it's stacked. A little bit more dynamic. It's pulling out a little bit more than it initially had. And so what we want to do is we want to go through and create relationships between our different files. And so this glow one is a little out of control. We definitely want something for that. It's going to tone it down. And darken seems to be like a real good option, because what darken does is it only pulls out the dark stuff. When you're pulling out the dark or the glow, obviously it's not much, and so you're getting a different pull than I had before, but it's not as dynamic, so I don't think I want to keep that, because it's actually pulling away from everything I want. And I wasn't quite sure what I wanted with this glow setting. I just thought it might have something interesting I could pull out, and that's what we're going to try to find here. It's definitely dulling down my elements so far, so I'm not too keen on it. This is an interesting one. I kind of like it. It seems to be really adding more than pulling away to some extent, but it's also washing it out a little bit more and making it less blue than I want, but I still like its interaction in general, and so I'll keep it and just tone it down a bit, and so I just get a tiny piece of those highlights. I'm not really keeping all of them. And now, yeah, you can see, turn it off and on, you get a little, you're just getting a little more glow, a little more orange in some areas. Let's turn this guy back on and see what we got. Now we got this bright and wild mess. I'm not even sure if I'm going to use this thing. I think I'm going to scrap this guy entirely. He's out of here. I don't want anything to do with that. So now let's go, where are we at? Okay, we want this. Now we're right about here in the process. Let's take this guy up and see what we're dealing with. This is a metallic I'm not getting colors. I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting a lot out of this that I want. I'm going to drop that down into my metals group. Okay, we have our initial compiled render with a couple different objects. What I want to do now is I want to incorporate the metallics within this object. I went ahead and grouped my layers and locked my initial design, one with the 3 metallics and then one with the stacked initial image. And so that's what these are, and I'm going to work on really kind of incorporating these guys and having them work together to get an even better image. So let's look here. We have our first metal. Looks really flat. Our second metal also looks really flat, and our third metal looks cool. Not so flat. What I want to do is on this first metal, we'll go ahead and play with our options here, and as you go through, you'll realize you want to start developing an interaction between the 2 layers. And so there are lots of different interactions that are happening here. The one that's my favorite right now is the color dodge. I think this is nice. I'm pulling out a little bit of detail from both metals, and it's not so flat anymore. Kind of does both. This guy's normal as well. Let's see what happens when we start to play with them. We're kind of going through 3 layers now, and we're really playing with it. Darker color, lighter color. It's okay. Getting some very dramatic results, to say the least. So not bad. I like pin light. I'm a little partial to pin light. This hue's doing something pretty interesting. I kind of like that. It's brightening it, adding oranges and some dark areas, and I'm still keeping my dark details. It's giving me some highlights that are a little poppy, but in general I'm pretty happy with that because of what I'm going to be doing with this. And so what I want to do is I'll just go ahead and duplicate these guys as well and merge them, put them up. Now that I have that set, I'll go ahead and lock that. And now what I'm going to want to do is I want to find a relationship between these two, and it shouldn't be too difficult. I really like what's going on in the first one in regards to the highlights, and I also like what's going on with the second one in regards to the lowlights and the grabs that some of the metal gets. And so I'm just going to go through this and play with it and see if I can get something that merges the two. Lighter color is allowing me to keep the things I liked about the initial one, and I'm not losing. I don't know, I don't think I'm losing a whole lot here, so I think it's a pretty good one to keep in mind. This is nice too, a little bit more subtle, a little less dynamic, with a soft light. Specifically in areas around here, it's pulling out some good details. It's a little bit too dynamic, probably, in the hard light. I love 80s video games. This makes me think of rock and roll racing for some reason. I think that's about it. That's about what we've run through. So my vote, I believe. This hard light is really pulling me in too, though. I don't know. It just might have that bad 80s taste to it. Throw a couple lasers in there. You know, I'm gonna go with one of the hard lights, one of the overlays, and hard light wins.